This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. A new lawsuit in Connecticut is putting the spotlight on women's sports in high school and the threat from transgender activists. Connecticut is one of 17 states that allows male athletes that identify as female to compete against female athletes with no restrictions. On Thursday, 3 female athletes and their mothers filed suit in a federal court in Hartford. They want the state to revise its athletic rules that allow boys to compete in girls' sports.
Now, when we line up in front of our blocks and the starter calls us to get into position, we all know how the race will end. We can't win. We've lived it. We've watched it happen. We've missed out on medals and opportunities to compete.
The Connecticut Association of Schools and the State Interscholastic Athletic Conference say that the transgender policy follows a state anti-discrimination law. That law says students must be treated according to the gender by which they identify. It also says that the policy is appropriate under federal law. The ACLU says it will represent the transgender athletes in court. Alliance Defending Freedom is representing the female athletes, and attorney Christiana Holcomb joins us now with more. Christiana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about these female athletes. I understand that they are top athletes. What has it been like for them to compete against biological males?
It's been extremely difficult. Chelsea, Selena, and Alana are elite female athletes in Connecticut. They have spent much of their life training to be the absolute best in their sport in track and field, only to compete against males and to lose state championship titles, awards, medals, and even the opportunity to compete in front of college coaches. So it's been extremely demoralizing for them.
It's really fascinating, and this lawsuit really is historic. What are you hoping to gain with this lawsuit?
Well, this lawsuit is the first of its kind in the nation, and we've asked a federal court to step in and stop this unfair and unconstitutional policy. Title IX was designed to ensure that girls like Selena, Chelsea, and Alana have a level playing field and the opportunity to be champions. And so we hope to restore that fair and level playing field for them.
So the state of Connecticut has issued a statement saying that its policy is in compliance with the state's non-discrimination law and federal law. What is your response to that?
Well, federal law trumps state law regardless, and they are clearly in violation of Title IX. Title IX protects everyone on the basis of biological sex. And when you allow biological males to come in and to dominate the female sports category, it's a fundamentally unfair and unequal playing field, which is not fulfilling the purpose and promise of Title IX for these young women.
What are you ultimately hoping for with this issue? Do you see a Supreme Court ruling eventually, federal legislation?
Well, ultimately, I hope we don't have to reach the Supreme Court with this issue. I think it's pretty clear that there's a violation of Title IX here, and we hope that the district court in Connecticut will overturn the policy and ensure that female athletes are protected and continue to experience that thrill of victory on a level playing field.
You know, it's interesting because we are beginning to hear about some of the pressure on female athletes in high schools right now to stay quiet about this issue. But I am wondering if you are hearing from some of them in other states that are equally concerned, have similar stories to these athletes in Connecticut.
Absolutely. We're hearing from athletes and, frankly, women across the country who are really upset and outraged about this issue. Look, if males are allowed to dominate women's sports, we essentially have a co-ed free-for-all, and it spells the end of women's athletics as a separate category. So this is a really important national issue. It's part of a broader national conversation, and we hope to ultimately ensure that young women like Selena, Alana, and Chelsea have the opportunity to compete on a level playing field.
Christiana Holcomb with Alliance Defending Freedom, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, in Colorado, state lawmakers have voted down legislation that would have protected a baby that survives an abortion. The House bill would have mandated that physicians provide medical care to a child born alive or after or during an abortion. The bill would also have implemented a $100,000 fine and a Class 3 felony for doctors who didn't follow through. Following the vote, Jeff Hunt, director of the Centennial Institute, tweeted, "A child is born in need of help, and the Colorado legislature voted against mandating care. God have mercy." Well, the coronavirus is on a rampage in China right now. Yesterday, 15,000 new cases were reported, along with more than 254 deaths. Why the sudden jump, and how is the Chinese government responding? Jenna Browder has more on the crisis.
The increase in cases is due to expanded diagnosis criteria, allowing doctors to more quickly diagnose and begin treatment immediately. That brings the total number of people infected by the virus, now labeled COVID-19, to about 60,000, and total deaths to more than 1,300. The shift raises questions about China's testing methods and numbers, resulting in the firing of two party officials in Hubei. And with the number of cases on the rise, health officials are warning it could soon start spreading in communities here at home.
A virus can have more powerful consequences than any terrorist action.
The newest case confirmed in the U.S. among evacuees quarantined on a military base in San Diego. Of the new cases confirmed outside China, nearly 50 were on board this Diamond Princess cruise ship, quarantined off the coast of Japan.
As each day progresses, we are having additional people tested positive.
And this Holland America cruise ship was turned away from 5 different ports in Asia, even though there are no known cases of COVID-19 on board.
We're all a bunch of human beings on this ship that have lives outside of this cruise ship that need us.
Passengers celebrating, though, after learning they'll finally get to dock in Cambodia. Now, help from Israel in the form of new technology could help curb the virus. This revolutionary face mask has the ability to kill 99% of viruses like COVID-19.
It kills all viruses, all bacteria, all fungus, and it will do it 100% of the time, all day, all night, 7 days a week. You can wash it, you can bleach it, you can dye it, you can hit it with a baseball bat. It's going to do its job.
Israeli scientists use invisible sound waves to inject copper particles with antiviral properties into cotton. These engineers then combine the ancient tradition of spinning cotton with today's technology. The result, masks that are far more effective than the standard N95 masks. The company is shipping these life-saving masks to Hong Kong. And we've also learned about another victim of the coronavirus. The Chinese Grand Prix, which was supposed to happen in April in Shanghai, has been postponed. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Although the coronavirus poses a huge health and economic crisis for the Chinese right now, many foreign policy experts believe the virus isn't the top concern for the U.S. when it comes to China. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, retired Brigadier General Robert Spalding says China's communist government itself poses more serious national security risks to the U.S. in the long run.
The greater concern with regard just to this coronavirus alone is a secrecy and control of the Chinese Communist Party. Of course, this goes all the way back to the beginning of December. It didn't really start coming out until mid-January. By then, the epidemic had spread. And so bringing in at an early date our CDC representatives and the WHO would have been the right choice. Of course, China is led by the Chinese Communist Party, which is a totalitarian regime, and essentially we haven't learned anything from the 70 years of the Cold War, where the Soviet Union essentially ruled over the United Soviet States, much like the Chinese Communist Party rules over China today. And so we see that come out every once in a while blatantly, like with regard to this coronavirus. But what's more damaging, and what I wrote about in my book, is a very stealthy way that they go about using globalization and the internet to insinuate themselves in every democratic institution within the United States, even to the point where suppressing speech and suppressing religion is something that they can do really at will.
President Trump says that he's been in touch with Chinese President Xi Jinping about the coronavirus, that they're friends. They have a good relationship. So how do you see this viral outbreak affecting U.S.-China relations?
Well, I think it's more affecting the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. So what's finally happening within China is that Chinese people are beginning to wake up and understand what kind of regime they live under. Of course, they've been quarantined to their apartments. Some have actually been locked in their apartments to die. I think, the United States and other democracies have come to know things like the concentration camps in Xinjiang and the forced organ harvesting of prisoners of conscience that has been illuminated by the UK tribunal. But the people of China have essentially been kept in the dark. And so for the first time, they're actually beginning to see the true nature of the regime, which has led to widespread dissent within the country for the first time, really since the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Now, the president's fiscal year 2021 budget, I think, keeps the defense budget about the same, around $740 billion. What will that mean for the national defense strategy that prioritizes China?
Well, I think one of the major things to have happened policy-wise in the United States is last August we pulled out of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, which was a treaty between Russia and the United States. Now, what that treaty said was the United States couldn't build intermediate-range ballistic or cruise missiles, but the Russians were violating it, and the Chinese have used the fact that they weren't a signatory to build thousands, literally thousands, of intermediate-range ballistic and cruise missiles that are conventionally armed. Some are nuclear armed in the region, which really puts our forces, like carrier battle groups and our bases, our air bases in the region, under threat. They are taking our innovation, our technology, our talent and capital, and using it to build up their science and technology capability and their manufacturing capability.
Well, I know in his State of the Union address, the president said he's committed to building the newest branch of the U.S. military. That's the U.S. Space Force. The Russians are shadowing our spy satellites in space. So how concerned should we be about outer space warfare with the Russians or the Chinese?
Within the region, very concerned, because we don't have any of the same ground or air-based assets that the Chinese Communist Party has built in the region. And so that really makes our space-based assets vulnerable. I would say more so than the Space Force, so we need to really be focused on the cyber defenses of the United States. The American military doesn't focus on protecting the data of the American people. And we saw recently that Experian was rated of 148 million records. So 148 million Americans had their credit data stolen by the Chinese Communist Party. The Department of Justice indicted the 4 PLA officers, but nevertheless, that data is within China now, and they're going to use it to undermine, the people, or to get close to the people that they want to. And so it's an incredible tragedy that the American military is not protecting the data of the American people. It isn't a national security strategy that we should do that by building a secure nationwide 5G network, but we're not currently doing that because of convention, because of business models, because of politics. And I think we really need to understand the kind of challenges we face today with globalization, the internet.
Cybersecurity, a big issue right here in the U.S. Okay, U.S. Brigadier General Robert Spalding, author, former China strategist for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
And you can watch more of Gary Lane's reporting on top issues in the news on the Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, a massive winter storm has wreaked havoc across the central U.S. What people there can expect in the forecast.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. he has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
A major winter storm swept across the U.S. last night. More than 34 states were under alert as blizzard conditions brought powerful winds in the northern plains. Interstate 29 was shut down from the Canadian border to the South Dakota state line because of what authorities consider to be life-threatening conditions. Meanwhile, in the south, the system there brought heavy rain and flash flooding. The National Weather Service issued wind chill alerts this morning for 14 million people, all the way from the northern plains to parts of the Midwest. Meteorologists say an Arctic cold front is expected to follow, bringing some of the coldest temperatures yet this winter. And joining us now with more is Chief Meteorologist with weatherbell.com, Joe Bastardi. Joe, we understand that an Arctic cold front is expected next. Tell us what we should prepare for.
Well, that front is coming full bore. It's across Ontario into northwest Ohio now, and that's the true Arctic air that's been stored in Alaska for the entire winter. Minneapolis, St. Paul today, they didn't get above 0, for instance. Chicago's high temperature was at midnight. It's been falling ever since then, and they may hit 0 tomorrow morning, and the wind chills be down near 10, 15 below 0. But the good thing about this is it's in and out. It's going to take 2 or 3 days, and the cold air will come, the cold air will leave. Then we get another cold air mass that's going to be coming in about 5, 6 days. And then after that, folks, the pattern is going to get really interesting. Now, we've been telling you for the past couple of weeks, remember we had me on after the groundhog was on. I don't like competing with the groundhog because he's got an unfair advantage. But the fact of the matter is we told you there'd be storms from Texas to New England, one after another. What's likely to happen later this month and into March is the pattern that we have not seen since November, where the jet stream tries to buckle into the eastern part of the United States, will redevelop. The past several Marches, if you notice, have been cold. And it's really interesting what's going on. It seems like a lot of times if the winter doesn't start in the middle of the winter, it waits till the end and it holds on a little bit until April. And there's a good chance that March is the worst of the winter months. But for now, we've got this storm that is leaving, very cold air. You're going to have to bundle up. What better day to bundle up and find someone to snuggle with than Valentine's Day?
Well, Joe, I'm sorry that we put you up against the groundhog there. So for the south end, it sounds like really a wet spring coming up.
Yeah. Yes, that's what we've had that forecasted. I was on last week, said I was at talking to some farmers up in Michigan, said that even up there, this entire pattern is because the Gulf of Mexico, Western Atlantic is so warm that there's extra water vapor available, extra water vapor if the atmosphere is not warming up. And see, that's the key. The mid and upper levels of the atmosphere are not responding to the AGW idea that's supposed to be warming up and drying out. They're staying cold. It means that the air is more unstable, more likely to produce precipitation, and you're seeing it happen right in front of your eyes.
All right. Well, Joe Bastardi with weatherbell.com, you got the good news and the bad. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path. Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
U.S. foreign aid cuts to Central America are affecting Christian nonprofits that work there. Christianity Today reports that some of the hundreds of millions that the U.S. government cut were going to organizations like World Vision, the International Justice Mission, and the Association for a More Just Society. A State Department official says that some funds may be released when the U.S. is satisfied that the countries are reducing their migrant flow. We are joined now by Jill Stoltzfus, the Executive Director of the Association for a More Just Society. Jill, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for having me.
You are a faith-based organization that does a lot of work in Honduras to shore up major institutions and promote stability. How are these cuts affecting you?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. These cuts are greatly affecting us. So we were receiving last year as a Christian organization about $2 million of U.S. government funding, which was just about half of our budget. We had about 130 Honduran staff members working very hard to try to create a Honduras that people wouldn't feel the need to leave, to create safe communities, to address some of the structural issues. And because of these cuts, we've had to lay off 42 staff members starting this year.
Jill, talk about your work. I know that you are very concerned about people leaving Honduras. Do you see that the work that you do directly impacting how people feel about their country and therefore encouraging people to stay at home and not flee to countries like the U.S.?
Yeah, ultimately, I think Hondurans mostly would love to be able to stay in their countries, in their communities, but there are factors that are pushing them from leaving Honduras. And those push factors are what AJS tries to address, primarily violence and corruption being two, at least, of those push factors. And in Honduras, we've partnered with the U.S. government to especially work on security issues, violence issues, as recently Honduras had some of the highest homicide rates in the entire world. In 2011 and 2012, it was 86 per 100,000, the highest in the world. And we're working strategically to try and decrease those homicide rates nationally, as well as in communities, and with actually great success. The homicide rate nationally has been cut in half over the last 5 years. And in communities that AJS is working in, which are especially violent communities in Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula, we've seen decreases of homicides of upwards of 70%. So highly effective programs that are helping to create safer communities so that people don't feel the need to leave, but because of funding have had to be decreased in the last year.
How concerned are you about this funding cut? How much of a setback is it? How much do you think it might encourage even more people to leave?
Yeah, it's really quite frustrating, and it's frustrating in part because there's a loss of funding. Thankfully, we have many partners, individuals, churches here in the United States that have been able to provide some private funding that has tremendously helped us to save some of our programming and some of those staff positions, which has been tremendously helpful, although there's still a loss there. And it's uncertainty with the future of funding that's also frustrating, because when there's uncertainty, people lose hope. And that's a driver also of migration and a potential that migration increases as well. Uncertainty breeds frustration, and it's an endless cycle. So we need to stop that, and we need to be able to get back into communities and try and create communities where people can flourish.
Well, Jill Stoltzfus with the Association for a More Just Society, appreciate your time and insights here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather.
After the break, we hear from NASA's newest record-setting astronaut and how she's adjusting to being back here on Earth.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
NASA astronaut Christina Cook is back on Earth after nearly 11 months in space. Cook flew the space station last March, and she was part of the first all-female spacewalk in October. She returned last week, and she told reporters in Houston that she is feeling great and happy to be home.
I think just all of the new things that I'm experiencing, sort of you see your mind wake up to the sensory experiences that define Earth and the things that are here. Well, the first thing that I did after I went home was to reunite with my dog, which was wonderful. She was very excited, and then we took a family trip to the beach. So got to take in some of the sights, sounds, and feelings of just being back near the ocean and some of those things that I miss so much.
And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us.